Cairo local time for Panorama News live on Nile TV International. We'll be back with the headlines. President International Day of Human Brotherhood, and President Sisi visits military college accompanied by Defense Minister. Coronavirus cases top 104.14 million globally and 2.3 million dead. Welcome back. Time for the news in full. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi gave a speech on Thursday marking the International Day of Human Brotherhood. In his words, President al-Sisi reiterated that the world is celebrating the day of important human value, which is brotherhood in humanity, and called for raising peace, cultural and values of forgiveness, justice and coexistence to achieve stability. The President said that Egypt is the cradle of human civilization and stressed keenness on boosting brotherhood pillars among all natives through equal rights. He also affirmed that Egypt is confronting any calls inciting hatred and violence and supporting the role of religious institutions in enhancing interfaith dialogue and raising awareness of human values. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called on students of military college to continue preserving high mental and physical fitness as well as military and noble manners to be capable of taking responsibilities and preserving the homeland. President al-Sisi's directives came during his inspective tour at the military college. He was accompanied by Minister of Defense and Military Production Mohammed Zaki and Armed Forces Chief of Staff Mohammed Farid, as well as a number of armed forces leaders. The President attended the military exercise for the college newcomers of Batch 117 and a number of activities including combat skills and self-confidence. The President also met with families of new students where he expressed gratitude and appreciation for their efforts in raising new generation on solid principles and values of loving to their nation. Meanwhile, President al-Sisi praised the high efficiency and the capabilities of the students. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs announced that Egypt has been chosen to chair the United Nations Peace Building Commission, succeeding Canada. In a statement, the ministry said that the decision was made in an official meeting for the Commission at the United Nations headquarters in New York, and that Egypt will be representing the African continent to lead this important position after it was chosen again to the membership of the Peace Building Commission in December the year 2020. Egypt's permanent ambassador to the United Nations, Mohammed Idris, said that Egypt's election to the important post for the first time had crowned diplomatic efforts over a decade and a half in support of the United Nations structure since its launch in 2005. Ambassador Idris noted that Egypt has reviewed its priorities in chairing the Peace Building Committee as Cairo intends to continue working on gathering support to achieve peace in post-conflict countries. Egypt has reported on Wednesday 512 new coronavirus infections, bringing the total number of cases to 167,525 people since the outbreak hit the country in mid-February. The Health Ministry also reported 53 new deaths, bringing the total number of fatalities to 9,460. The ministry added that 398 patients were discharged from hospitals, raising the number of those who have recovered to 130,912 people. At least 2.2 million people have died of coronavirus since the outbreak emerged in China in December 2019. This as the WHO team searching for clues about the virus's origins went to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, one of the most watched stops on a politically sensitive trip to the central Chinese city where the virus was first detected, as poorer nations get vaccine boost. More details with the following report.
International experts inspected a Chinese laboratory in Wuhan that some U.S. officials had suggested was the source of the coronavirus, as plans were firmed up to distribute vaccines to poorer nations. The World Health Organization-backed COVAX scheme said it would roll out tens of millions of doses to lower-income countries in the next few months, with India the biggest beneficiary getting 97.2 million of the initial doses. And there was more positive news on vaccines seen as a vital tool to overcoming a pandemic that has killed more than 2.2 million since it emerged in China in late 2019, and more than 104.14 million cases have been registered. However, China has been widely criticized for seeking to cover up the emergence of the virus and for blocking WHO efforts to investigate its origins. A WHO team finally started work on its investigation in recent days after months of delays, with the experts visiting the Wuhan Institute of Virology on Wednesday. Former U.S. President Donald Trump and officials in his administration last year promoted a theory providing no evidence that the virus had somehow leaked from the lab. A member of the World Health Organization led team searching for clues to the origins of COVID-19 in the central Chinese city of Wuhan said work was needed to try to trace genetic elements of the virus in back caves. The team in Wuhan had been receiving new information about how the virus first identified in the city in late 2019 led to a pandemic.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he hopes to see the Middle East Quartet of mediators meeting again in the next few weeks in a press interview. Guterres said that the United Nations was completely blocked in relation to any form of peace negotiations, as Israelis and the Palestinians would not talk to each other. Last week, the acting U.S. envoy to the Security Council that the new administration of U.S. President Joe Biden supports a two-state solution and will overturn several decisions made under his predecessor, Donald Trump. He noted that there was a strong will of the new U.S. administration to play a positive role in creating conditions for a true peace process to restart. Syrian forces responded in the late hours of Wednesday to Israeli aggression in the south of the country. Syrian state media said that Israel launched missiles from the Golan Heights at around 9 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time and caused material damage. It added that the regime anti-air defenses responded and intercepted most of the Israeli missiles. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the Israeli bombing targeted a position where pro-Iranian militias are also present in the southern Qinṭara province. Israel routinely carries out raids in Syria, mostly against targets linked to Iran, in what it says is a bid to prevent it from consolidating a foothold on its northern border. Libyan delegates at the United Nations-backed talks resumed on Thursday, voting to choose a president and two vice presidents. They have voted for a three-member presidency council, part of a new transitional executive to lead the war-ravaged nation until scheduled December elections. The 75 participants at the Libyan Political Dialogue Forum near Geneva were shown on footage broadcast live by the United Nations, casting their ballots in 3 boxes, each representing a region of the country. The 3 council posts, a president and 2 vice presidents, will represent Tripolitania in the west, Syrintia in the east, and Fezzan in the south. The 24 candidates for the 3 posts gave campaign speeches on Monday via video conference, with many calling for reconciliation and the withdrawal of the estimated 20,000 foreign forces and mercenaries still on Libyan soil. According to the United Nations, the future Transitional Council will be tasked with reuniting state institutions and ensuring security until elections slated for December. Forces loyal to the Central African Republican government have retaken a key town from rebels as the United Nations said peacekeepers would maintain a robust posture. Bozombele, around 150 kilometers northwest of the capital Bangui on a vital road, artery was one of the jumping off points for armed rebel groups in an offensive launched against the capital in December. More details with the following report.
Forces loyal to the Central African Republic government have retaken a key town from rebels as UN said peacekeepers would maintain a robust posture. Bozombele, around 150 kilometers northwest of the capital Bangui on a vital road artery, had been retaken Tuesday by elements of our armed forces and allies. Bozombele was one of the jumping off points for armed rebel groups in an offensive launched against the capital in December as they banded together under the name Coalition of Patriots for Change to try to prevent the re-election of the president. 8 years into civil war, rebels control around two-thirds of the territory, with many districts unable to hold 27th of December ballot when the president was re-elected in the first round. But the presence of 12,000 strong, well-armed and equipped UN peacekeeping force has kept the CPC far from the capital, alongside hundreds of Rwandan troops and Russian paramilitaries sent to shore up the country's ragged army. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres later Wednesday called on Central African authorities to initiate a meaningful and inclusive political dialogue with opposition and armed groups that have renounced violence.
Former European Central Bank Chief Mario Draghi urged Italy's splintered parties to get behind him as he tries to form a new government and lift his country out of the devastation of the coronavirus pandemic, after receiving a mandate from President Sergio Mattarella to open talks on a national unity government. Draghi stressed the urgency of resolving the political chaos at such a difficult moment. There has been no fully functioning government in Rome for weeks as Giuseppe Conte's ruling coalition slowly collapsed in Rome over the handling of COVID-19 and the resulting deep recession. Conte quit last week but stays on in a caretaker capacity, while Draghi, famous for promising to do whatever it takes during the Eurozone debt crisis, tries to build his own majority in Parliament. The Economist highlighted the huge challenges facing Italy, which was the first European country to face the full force of the pandemic and is still suffering badly. You're watching 9TV International live from Cairo. Back again to our view on the world news. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he would do everything in his power to pressure Myanmar and make sure that this coup fails. Myanmar plunged back into a coup on Monday when soldiers detained de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other civilian leaders in a series of dawn raids. Guterres said the United Nations would do everything it could to mobilize all key actors and international community to put enough pressure on Myanmar to make sure that the coup fails. The United Nations chief also lamented that the Security Council has been unable to agree on a common statement about Myanmar's coup after an emergency meeting initiated by Britain. The Council would also demand that the one-year state of emergency be repealed. A mammoth effort by Australian firefighters saved homes from an out-of-control bushfire near Perth overnight. Authorities warned that strong winds and rough terrain posed an ongoing challenge. More details in the following story.
Efforts by Australian firefighters saved homes from an out-of-control bushfire near Perth overnight, but authorities warned Thursday strong winds and rough terrain posed an ongoing challenge. At least 81 homes have been destroyed in the blaze at the Perth Hills on the eastern fringes of Australia's fourth biggest city, with surveys of areas burned earlier this week adding another 10 to the tally Thursday. 7 firefighters have sustained minor injuries, but no deaths have been reported in the bushfire, which has scorched 10,000 hectares since it was sparked Monday. It comes about a year after Australia was hit by unprecedented climate change-fueled bushfires, devastating whole communities and wiping out billions of animals. More than 3.5 million hectares were burnt across Western Australia during 2019-2020. But the state was largely spared the loss of properties and lives seen in the country's more densely populated southeast. Scientists say fires are becoming more frequent and intense due to climate change, with people living in urban bushland areas like the Perth Hills especially vulnerable to the impact of blazes. More than 250 firefighters were operating in rough and hilly terrain, making their task really difficult. Winds of up to 70 kilometers an hour have left some water-bombing planes grounded and were continuing to fan the flames.
Well, that ends our political segment for now, and I leave you with more news, financial news and sports with my colleague and friend Shireen Adil.
Good afternoon, Nasreen. Dear viewers, a short break and we'll be back with the financial headlines, so stay tuned.